Ever pondered why some nations thrive while others crumble? It's a question that has captivated scholars, policymakers, and curious minds alike. To understand this, we need to delve into the concept of failed states. A failed state, in essence, is one that's lost its ability to provide basic public services, maintain law and order, or effectively govern its territory. Now, imagine a nation where the government is no longer capable of enforcing law and order, where public services are virtually non-existent and economic stability is just a pipe dream. This is the grim reality of a failed state. But what leads a country down such a harrowing path? The factors are varied and complex, ranging from political instability and economic collapse to social unrest. Political instability, for instance, can create power vacuums and lead to conflict. It can undermine the state's capacity to govern, leading to a breakdown in law and order. Economic collapse, on the other hand, can trigger widespread poverty and unemployment, exacerbating social tensions and potentially leading to conflict. Social unrest, meanwhile, can destabilize the state, further exacerbating economic and political problems. But it's important to remember that state failure isn't a simple, one-dimensional issue. It's a complex, multifaceted problem that involves a tangled web of interrelated factors. It's like a domino effect. One issue leads to another, and before you know it, the state is spiraling out of control. Moreover, the concept of failed states itself is a bit contentious. It's often criticized for oversimplifying complex situations. After all, countries can fall along a spectrum of state fragility. Some might be struggling, others might be on the brink of collapse, and others might have already fallen into the abyss of failure. Indeed, the question of why nations fail is as intriguing as it is complex. But by understanding the factors that contribute to state failure, we can begin to unravel this intricate puzzle and hopefully find ways to help these nations rise from the ashes. As we delve deeper into this topic, remember that the journey to understanding is just as important as the destination itself. Real-world examples provide a vivid picture of state failure. Let's dive into some real-world case studies of state failure. Somalia, for instance, paints a stark picture of a failed state. Its prolonged state of lawlessness and civil war since the early 90s has left the nation in shambles. The central government's inability to establish control over the entire country and provide basic public services led to the rise of warlords and extremist groups. The consequences? Widespread poverty, mass displacement, and human rights abuses. The causes? A lethal mix of political instability, clan-based conflict, and foreign intervention. Now, let's shift our gaze to Zimbabwe, a country that spiraled into economic collapse in the early 2000s. Once hailed as the breadbasket of Africa, Zimbabwe grappled with hyperinflation, unemployment, and food shortages. The trigger? A series of ill-conceived land reforms that disrupted the agricultural sector and scared away foreign investment. The government's failure to effectively manage the economy and its disregard for the rule of law led to a severe economic crisis. The result? A population grappling with poverty and a state unable to meet its citizens' basic needs. These are just two examples. Each failed state has its unique story, a complex interplay of domestic and international factors that lead to its downfall. From Afghanistan's struggle with insurgency and corruption, to the Central African Republic's battle with sectarian violence and political instability, the narrative of state failure is fraught with complexities. These case studies highlight the multifaceted nature of state failure. The causes are seldom singular or straightforward. They can be political, economic, or social, often intertwined in a vicious cycle that's hard to break. The consequences, too, are far-reaching, affecting not just the state and its people, but also having regional and global implications. Understanding these real-world examples is vital. They underscore the urgency of addressing state failure and the need for nuanced, context-specific solutions. These cases illuminate the harsh realities of state failure and the intricate causes behind them. Scholars have proposed various theories to explain the phenomenon of state failure. One of the most compelling theories is presented by Darren Acemoglu and James A. Robinson in their groundbreaking book, Why Nations Fail. They argue that the key to understanding why nations succeed or fail lies in their institutions. They're not talking about buildings or organizations, but the rules that shape a nation's economic and political life. In their view, inclusive institutions, those that provide a level playing field, where individuals have the freedom to pursue their dreams and are secure in their rights and property, are the backbone of a nation's success. These institutions encourage innovation, foster trust, and facilitate cooperation, driving economic prosperity and political stability. On the other hand, Extractive institutions, where power is concentrated in the hands of a few, and wealth is extracted from the many, lead to failure. These institutions discourage innovation, breed mistrust and foster conflict, leading to economic stagnation and political instability. Acemoglu and Robinson's theory is a powerful lens through which we can understand the rise and fall of nations. It tells us that it's not geography, culture, or ignorance that determines a nation's fate, but the quality of its institutions. Thus, the quality of a nation's institutions can make or break its fate. So, can a failed state be saved? Is there a road to recovery? Addressing state failure is akin to navigating a labyrinth. There is no one-size-fits-all solution because each nation's failure is rooted in unique circumstances. But there are potential strategies that could pave the way to recovery. First, it's crucial to strengthen political institutions. This could mean implementing democratic reforms to ensure fair representation and accountability. Or it could involve rebuilding judicial systems to uphold justice and rule of law. Next, economic institutions need to be fortified. This might involve adopting policies that promote fair competition, protect property rights, and ensure economic inclusivity. Humanitarian aid is another crucial element in the recovery process. This can provide immediate relief to people affected by state failure, but it must be coupled with long-term development efforts. Let's not forget about the role of the international community. Outside actors can and should provide support, but it's essential that this support is guided by a deep understanding of the local context and a respect for national sovereignty. And finally, patience. Recovery is not an overnight process. It takes time, perseverance, and resilience. It's a steep road to recovery, filled with twists and turns. But by focusing on these key areas, there's a chance to navigate this labyrinth and guide a nation towards stability and prosperity. While the road to recovery is steep and fraught, the possibility of transformation exists, offering a glimmer of hope for failed states.